So my name is Ranga. I lead product management for Commvault. Pleasure to be in front of you today, and was enjoying that conversation. We might be touching on some of those as we go through Activate as well. We ran into a lot of time, so I'm going to try and keep it a little brief because Patrick is going to go into more details a little bit later. Okay, if I figure out how to use this. Cool. Let me skip some of the context slides, right? And let's jump right to it. Don was spending a lot of time talking about how we see the primary and secondary data kind of coming together, right? Let's forget the specifics of whether it is running on the same infrastructure or not. But the important thing is there are many data services that are delivered common across primary and secondary data. And a very good example of that is where we have built Activate into, right? Activate is our data governance, data analytics product. It's a standalone product in our portfolio, and it has the ability of working across primary data as well as Commvault backups and archives. What does it do? Very simply, goes back to the question that you had earlier. It goes into more of data analysis across various aspects. There's a lot of mass data fragmentation challenges today, so analyze part of Activate looks at where the files are, who owns them, do they have the right ownership level, do we need to lock down those ownership, actionable insights presented through Command Center, which is a single UI across the product portfolio. In addition to that, it also helps take remediation actions from various aspects. You know, if you need to change the access controls, you can do that. From a sensitive data governance perspective, Activate has the ability to go and look for different data patterns across primary and backup and archives and report it out to you. And you can also do a lot of compliance search in that aspect. Yeah.
Now, are you saying when we're analyzing, we're actually analyzing the objects that are being backed up? We're not actually analyzing the data contained within those objects?
We are doing both, and you didn't even see my slides, but thank you for that. Commvault Activate is actually built on top of the Commvault data platform. So let me use your question to explain a little bit more about that. We have what we call 4D indexing, which is 4 dimensions of indexing that is built into the product. So when somebody is using backup, back to your example, they're using that first dimension of the index, which is really looking at metadata. You know, who owns the files, if it is files, or what is the last time it was accessed. If it is email, it is looking at some of the very simple aspects, like, you know, what is the subject, who is it going to, from, all those kind of aspects. Now, when a customer uses Activate, we build on top of that index to get into content indexing. So that is where we get into the data and we look at different patterns and we start taking up those text keywords and loading it into the index. So when you are searching based on keywords or specific patterns, you can start getting those data. The third dimension is really the data entity classification. So we have what we call an entity manager. It has the most common types of sensitive data, like passport numbers for different countries, credit card numbers, bank account numbers. So those are out-of-box entities that can be used to look up. Additionally, businesses can define data patterns based on what is sensitive for them. So the third dimension of index takes those sensitive data patterns, compares it against a text lookup that it has done, and loads that as sensitive data into the index. The fourth dimension, advanced insights, is where Don was making a reference earlier about how we can partner with other vendors in the ecosystem like Lucidworks to drive more artificial intelligence-based search capabilities and indexing capabilities into that same indexing technology. So all of that put together is being used by Activate. Now, when a customer is doing only backup and restores, because it's part of the same platform, we unlock only that first dimension of metadata indexing. For customers who use Activate, we extend into the second and third dimensions. The fourth dimension is more of a roadmap direction for us, where we are working with multiple vendors. You can think of it as an ecosystem play when it comes to insights.
And is this unstructured data?
It can be unstructured. As I was showing earlier, it goes across the entire spectrum.
Right, so how do you manage the structured data contained within, say, traditional applications contained within a VM? Or are you relying on taking application-based backups in order to get
That's a great point, right? Like today, if you look at files and emails, we of course know how to go and look inside that. That extends to Salesforce and any of the places where we know the structure, and we've been consistently increasing the extent to which we can analyze. Like recently, we added OCR, optical character recognition as well. So that again is a roadmap dimension. Just as we are adding more data sources, we're also adding more ways of looking at and analyzing that data.
But does that mean you are doing structured data in databases at the moment?
We do get into.
Yeah, we actually do have a scenario where we're doing sensitive data analysis using databases. And Ranga's going to talk about the 3 primary use cases that we use for Activate, but we've actually got these 3 use cases have been built on top of a pretty robust tool set, and those tool sets are actually often also aligned with getting structured data from those various sources as well.
Okay.
So I know you said you can tie into third-party vendor tools. I just want to clarify, so this data can be pulled into third-party SIM and anomaly detection tools. And then can we talk a little bit about data retention? Are users able to customize how long this data is kept, or what's the time span for that?
Yeah, so the answer to your first question is yes. Yeah, data can be exported out, and that's how it goes through the analysis. Now, when we take a step back, if you just look at the Commvault backups, we already provide the ability to define different retention times and archival policies, and the same functionality is kind of inherited and built upon here as well. As an example, when you look at the file storage optimization, which is a separate module in Activate, you can very quickly see that there are some files which have been unused for a long time and which are huge, just taking up space, that can automatically be archived from that, and you can set the retention policy on it that it needs to be there for 7 years or whatever it is, right? So all those policies are driven through Command Center, and when you get into the demo later in the day, we'll actually walk through some of those use cases.
Okay, so you guys are doing some sort of, I don't know really how to term it, but smart parsing of data.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, he'll walk through a little bit more data there. The second use case here is sensitive data governance. So here is where...
Sorry, one more question on integration. So what happens when you go into a mature organization that's already got data classified? And they already have the classification system, but they want to use your tool for search and other advanced analytics? How do you integrate those two?
There is an initial learning process in which it's going to build the index. And when I was talking about the sensitive data entities, we have the ability to define custom entities, which is where the existing classification will come in. But definitely there is a time frame when the index has to be built and that information needs to be mapped in. Now,
so we'll always leverage your index versus a third-party index. So there'll be 2 indexes that have to be
correct. This will be our own index. Now again, for customers who are already using Commvault for backing up our archive, it's much simpler. And if it's a net new customer, then there is a learning process, the data ingest that needs to happen.
And then
so
one more, and then I swear you can switch slides.
No. I don't have as many slides as Don, so we can stay on this slide for 2 more minutes.
All right.
2 more minutes.
So how do you guys, and maybe this is something that you just consult your customers on, but how do you guys maintain security when you guys integrate with third-party vendors, whether it be legal or regulatory?
Yeah. So the third-party integration does not exist in the product today, just to be totally transparent and clear on what is available. Going back to that 4D indexing that I talked about, that 4th part of the indexing is really where we have the ability to partner with third parties, and security is definitely a key construct that we will be bringing into that conversation. Given the area that this product plays in, if we were going to position those capabilities to our customers, then definitely we need to talk about security from the perspective of that third-party plugins that we're going to be using as well. So it's a fair question, and we need to get to that.
And is your data profiling multilingual, supporting many languages?
Not
Human
today.
languages.
Human languages, yes.
The product is capable of handling multiple languages.
Okay.
Answer is yes. Okay, so the second use case, and actually you're going to see a pretty detailed demo of this on Wednesday's keynote, where we will walk through how we handle sensitive data governance and what are the different actions that you can take on it. But there is one action that I wanted to call out here, which again brings out this integration between backup and Activate. So let's say you identified some particular data pattern, social security numbers, and you wanted to remove all those files. In addition to remove the files from the live data, we also have the ability to go into Commvault backups and purge all those files from the backup as well. This again is an artifact that we are building on top of the same platform. So that is the kind of data service integration that we expect to get to when we bring in the Hedvig IP in-house. Think of it more from the outcomes that customers want. And when those outcomes stretch between primary and secondary data, we want to be that platform that's providing that service. And a very good example is this ability to purge data, both from live data, production data, as well as from backups.
Do you support any sort of location awareness for data so that data doesn't span regions and data government's requirements?
The data sovereignty, right? So this is why I said that this is going to layer a lot on top of the previous conversation from Don. So what we lack today and what is supplemented by whatever we are getting from the Hedvig IP is really the data sovereignty. If you get a chance to watch the Hedvig demo in the showcase area, you would be able to see that we can actually specify which location the data needs to be contained in. And that IP is relevant not only for production primary storage use cases, it's very relevant for backup archiving use cases as well. So you're going to see a cross-proliferation of IP, which enables us to enable more data services with the customer outcomes in mind. Right? And that's another very good example of where there's going to be a cross-proliferation. Right? The last one, compliance search in EDiscovery. This is a very classic EDiscovery kind of a module where you can search for specific data, set retention holds on it. We have case manager functionality with which you can collect all the information into a case, send it out for legal review, pay all the legal bills, but much lower with this product. So those are the 3 use cases that we have enabled today on top of the Activate platform. Now, this is an area where we are seeing a lot of interest from our customers, especially in the email and document compliance space. So you can very well expect that there's going to be a lot more growth on this. This is also the first instantiation of a use case which very nicely spreads across primary and backup data. So that's one of the main reasons why we've also made a lot of investments. I don't like this clicker. I'll skip this dashboard. Patrick is anyway going to work on it, is going to talk through it. So we also redid the pricing and packaging for this product. Earlier, Activate needed to be bought as a single product across the use cases, but we are expecting to introduce a range of services going into the next year. So to make it much simpler to consume, we've broken up the licensing model so that customers can avail whichever service they're interested in. And for each service, of course, there is a meter that makes sense for that service. Right? So instead of, and if you want to consume the entire product, that's of course available as well. I did not touch on a lot of aspects like, we have the ability to redact sensitive data before exporting out the files. We have a lot of data source integration, and I hope that the demo is going to cover some of that. If not, I'll come back again at the end of the demo and we can cover
Just
that.
one question.
Yes, definitely.
Sorry.
I'll go there and then come here if it's okay with you. Yeah.
Can you do you know off the top of your head what percentage of volume of data is unstructured in the Hedvig landscape today compared to other types of data, like structured and devices?
In the Hedvig landscape, right now there are 2 big key use cases. The first one is more around virtualization in containers, primary storage, and the second one is being a backup target for multiple different backup software. Right? So the second use case more structured, first use case more unstructured.
But would you have a feel for how they're split?
I would think maybe 50-50 at this point of time, unstructured, structured.
For
Hedvig,
use cases
for
on
just for Hedvig.
They are definitely probably much more structured than they are unstructured. Meaning, if you take container data and say virtual VM data as structured data, which I think we probably would, it's not like they're just dropping user documents. Then yes, much more.
Your potential user base from Hedvig is coming with more structured than unstructured data.
But remember, there's also an object, and there's also the object play that it has, which we can link into as well and provide all the data context.
What I was just trying to work out was the, if I can, sorry to go into more detail, but trying to work out as you either go after customers or you are looking at existing customers, where the benefit will be from the integration with the platform directly, because obviously it's easier to integrate with stuff that's unstructured, because you can now add new APIs into the platform that can do some of this pre-work in the Hedvig platform before you actually would have used your own tools to do that work. So you can now expose APIs to your own Activate platform and have the storage layer have done a lot of that work at the time that the file was either created or updated or monitored or managed, and clearly that's your advantage. But it's only an advantage if that's where the majority of that workload currently is today.
Yeah.
That's an interesting data point, right? We are looking at 3 levels of synergies. The first one is really the multi-protocol standardization that we'll be able to deliver by the combination of these 2 IPs, right? The second level of synergy is really from the business outcomes. We were talking about, the data sovereignty and data profiling, which is very much important from a backup and restore perspective, as much as from the production data perspective, right? And increasingly, data management is seen as an attribute of storage, so there's a lot of synergy there. The third one, which you rightly point out, is more of a, what are you bringing to the table kind of a synergy. And frankly, we are exactly 10 days since the close of the acquisition, so I think we'll have more details on that as we move forward. But those, in addition to the third one, we are definitely looking at the first and second more from a what business outcomes can we deliver by a combination of these 2 IPs. Right. Just one more and I'll leave. Lots of stuff in the show floor where you can catch, activate in action. Like I mentioned before, there's going to be a demo in the keynote, second day. There's also
Ranga,
yeah,
terabyte.
sorry, I have to go back here.
Yeah, I have one question.
I'll go here, yeah.
When do you expect to have the flexible licensing for Commvault Activate based upon the use cases?
When?
Yeah.
We already have it.
So you already have?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you mentioned it was going to be soon.
Yeah. So it went live on the price book before the event, so it's already available.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So,
Thanks for the question.
licensing question. A couple of Commvaults ago, and Don, this may be a question for you. You guys made a really big deal about simplifying licensing and collapsing this. This seems to be going in the opposite direction. Is that an end result of just you guys having a more complex mix of solutions now with the Hedvig thing? Are we to expect more flexible option things, which kind of you guys poo-pooed a couple of years ago?
Can I give a philosophical answer and then Don can give a historic answer? So licensing model very much depends on the product as well as the base that is consuming that product. In the case of backup and recovery, you can think of it as pretty mature technology where it doesn't make sense for us to, split out and charge by individual features. In the case of Activate, it is getting into a very growing new market.
I think it's going into a new market of things being combined together. When I look at EDiscovery, I did an EDiscovery project 10 years ago, so that's pretty mature.
The market is mature, but as a combination of these use cases, it's not yet at that level of maturity, right? So the users for EDiscovery are a little bit different from the users for the file storage optimization. So where that flexibility makes sense, my philosophical view is that we should provide that licensing flexibility. But I think historically, maybe something to add.
So, one thing you can look at is absolutely flexibility, simplicity are key for what we're trying to do, our packaging and pricing. A lot of it also has to do with who are you selling it to? Does it actually align appropriately with the other solutions that you're selling to other people? Does it map with how they want to buy? Ultimately, that's what's driving a lot of our methodology is the people that are buying the products, the people that are owning the budget and that need these solutions solved. How do they want to actually procure the solution? And we're trying to make sure that we're mapping to that, even if it means adding a little bit of complexity back into the portfolio. Okay, as long as we're making it easier for the customer to consume, that we still view as a win. So you may see some more SKUs and things populate up as we have more offerings. That's a given. But the key is making sure it's simple for the end user.
So my only challenge, and we can go down this rabbit hole in another discussion, But my only challenge to that is then it should just be separate products. If you're selling to different audiences, why have one product brand and you're selling to 3 different audiences? How, I guess the follow-on question from a practical sense, how many times what's the percentage of you guys selling it all as one packaged solution to a single audience customer versus how often you break it up into these 3 different products?
So as of now, we've been selling it as a combined product, and there are a lot of our customers who use multiples of these use cases. But at the same time, we are coming across opportunities where there is a lot of interest on sensitive data governance or specifically on e-compliance. And very often it's also a timed project where, the all-in consumption might not make sense. So we are seeing a mix. And to enable that mix, we still have the complete product as well. I can quote multiple examples,
I understand.
but there are
Yeah,
customers who are using that.
it's not that simple. Okay.
The terabyte licenses is based on how much storage you're actually indexing, whether it's primary or secondary, or is it
It depends.
secondary?
It depends on he won't let me go back. It depends on the use case. So there is, you can either go by the TB that is being indexed.
Let's say sensitive data,
Front-end
which spans primary and secondary. So if you were indexing all the customer's primary data and all his secondary data, that would be the number of terabytes in that license?
It would be based on the front-end terabytes to use.
So primary data only?
Primary data only.
Okay.
Primary data only. And you can also go for the per user licensing there.
That's all.